Hey friends, my name is Allison Steele, and you're listening to Unravel with Allison. Unravel with Allison is a show where I take a concept that's got me in knots and we unravel it together. Thanks for being here. Welcome back, friends. This is another episode of Unravel with Allison, and today we are really unraveling a whole mix of everything because I've been very busy exploring what it feels like to live my life in a new place with different people that I grew up with, but also in the light of adulthood, it's different and it's beautiful and it's challenging. And I haven't had a whole lot of time to sit down and take care of myself, think about myself, really get into the topics that I enjoy or do anything but the next thing to keep this rig rolling, because I've been an emotional wreck and my cleanup crew has been the most amazing thing that I could have ever asked for. I'm just so thankful. What I'm going to give you today, I'm going to call it snippets because I have been giving myself little windows of time to reflect. And this has basically been like little journal entries into my notes folder in my phone. And now I'm kind of reflecting on it as a highlight reel. And I'm glad I did this. I'm glad I took the time to give myself time to express what I was thinking about while I was thinking about it and explore it in this kind of way. So I am officially moved into the new place. We're settled and getting squared away. We definitely don't have everything figured out, but we are making progress. But today I thought I'd give you some snippets of this self-reflection. And basically I just opened my notes and read through it. And I'm like, there is not a topic necessarily in here. It kind of does come full circle, but it's just growth. You know what I mean? It's just assessing. It's a self-assessment. I'm just going to share this with you. And it's basically like a little window, like I said, into the last 2 weeks and 3 weeks. And, just share my little highlight reel with me. And even though it's not all highlights, but when I had little windows of myself for self-reflection, this is how it works. In Al-Anon, I learned that expectations are planned resentments. That helped me lessen my anger in so many ways, but the energy of my situation still lingered. It was no longer anger, but it turned to sadness. Not resentful, but it was pretty empty. And as much as I can remove my expectations, I have to monitor the respect that I'm offering myself. I've been very selfish in the past few years, intentionally. I lost myself and it took a while to remember who I was when I liked myself. Navigating all of that this round has been very different. I went from a full masculine vibe and blasted into the feminine, and maybe it doesn't look that way, but I've changed a lot, and packing up my entire house has been a constant reminder of my change. For me, masculine is paternal, with structure, patterns, and purpose, mission-driven, clear steps with problem-solving, staying in line. Masculine asks, what can I do? What am I willing to do? For me, the feminine is maternal, material, not like physical structure, but more sensory-focused. The feminine asks, what does this feel like? So I used to shave my legs and my armpits, and it itches when it grows back in, and I did it so often. So I was basically always physiologically uncomfortable in those regions. 2 years ago, I had a rash on my knee that would come and go, but it spread when I shaved. So during a flare-up in the winter, I decided I would just let it grow out until the rash subsided, but I stopped paying attention to it, and I didn't mind how the hair felt once it was established. And I had intended on shaving my legs again one day, but when summer came around, I took a walk with my family and I could feel the wind blowing through my leg hair. And I was fascinated by it, and it was a new sensation that I adored. And honestly, hairy legs seem masculine or super feminist, I guess, but it was a more feminine thing of me to denounce the pattern and the expectation of shaving my legs. But I also stopped shaving my armpits too because I felt better that I wasn't constantly itchy. It was like, I thought I was used to it, but removing the physical noise makes a big difference when you don't have that extra stuff that you don't know exists. I read a post today that said, if you listen to your body when it whispers, you won't have to hear it scream. A reoccurring rash is a scream. Daily itchiness is a scream. Feeling the wind blow through your leg hair is a whisper. So are you listening to what your body is telling you? Can you feel what your body is showing you? My grandmother stopped over to help out, and the next day my mom, sibling, and our friend came to help out, and I was a mess. I was sobbing all day long and disassociating and rage quitting, especially if somebody was asking for my input or explaining what had been accomplished because we're trying to get the house ready to sell. Those are basically the only conversations you have with people when you're packing a house, and I just couldn't handle it. And they let me be a mess, and they loved me anyway and constantly reminded me that I am supported, loved, lovable, all of that. So the next day I wake up a new woman and I had all these people to help me. And I felt the difference. I was ready to take it on, and more women showed up to help. My stepson's mom came over to help finish his room. My neighbor is just an absolute all-star, and when she moved in, she has just supported us in so many ways, and my kids treat her like a rock star. But we're making real progress, and the ways that I'm being supported today, in the past, I would beat myself up about getting handouts and feeling like I need to make it up to them somehow. But I'm not beating myself up today. I would love to return the favor or extend appropriate gratitude, but I can't even muster that up. So today I'm just soaking it up and working with it. I've practiced saying, thank you, I needed your help. Or when help is offered, saying, yes, I need your help. I appreciate the offer. And I've been practicing for 1 day so far, and I hate it, but I'm also learning to love it already. I've been afraid to ask for help, and I feel guilty calling to ask someone to babysit my kids when I don't even visit or otherwise check in. I thought that I couldn't stomach that conversation over the guilt, so I didn't try to. But I didn't check in or visit because I didn't have peace of mind, and I couldn't get a break to reset without actually taking a break. But I didn't respect myself enough to actually ask for help. During my detachment phase, Al-Anon was a guiding light, and thankfully they have a slogan or an acronym for everything. They're these simple, charming reminders for when everything else is complicated. I found a note card that I saved from a meeting where I had written down D.E.T.A.C.H, but it's an acronym. D.E.T.A.C.H. Don't even think about changing him/her. Again, this led me to internalize my problems, not in a bad way necessarily, but processing them in a new way that leads to better understanding. In the past, with conflict, I felt like I needed them to see it from my side, and I needed to see it from their side, and then everybody would be good. We could tackle the issues together. But when I couldn't force the other side to talk to me how I wanted to, we became each other's problems. So I internalized everything as a me problem and held on closely to concepts like this too shall pass or one day at a time, while really looking closely at myself and questioning the root of my disturbances. And I learned so much about myself and became so understanding, but I wasn't unbothered. I had little to no expectations, and I was finding genuine comfort saying, it is what it is. No use crying over spilled milk. And I meant it in the moment, and I was not resentful. But when I was alone, I was lamenting. I was grieving. I was trying to unravel the disrespect in my relationship and why it was there and how it started and how to fix it and can we fix it. And I despise the disrespectful version of myself, and it comes so easily to me if I don't pay attention. So many things can be true at once, and the disrespectful version of myself will flawlessly find the one that will cut like a knife. In retrospect, I wish I had spent my energy focused on establishing and offering examples of respect rather than microscoping the disrespect. But while I was fine-tuning the disrespect in my relationship, I realized that that was a me problem also. I'm terrified of being perceived as disrespectful, and I listen when people talk about being disrespected. I hear how you feel. I get it. And I also hear a lot of my casual behavior in the stories that people tell me of being hurt by others. It causes me not to reach out. And that's not the intention. And it's likely a different scenario, but I hear the one thing and latch on to save myself from hurting anyone. Like, I didn't just forget how to ask for help. I outright refused it even when I was offered. I explained earlier about how I needed to take a break for myself, but I felt bad about asking someone to babysit. It's disrespectful to only call when you need something. So I backed myself into this corner, practically welcoming a straitjacket. But if I respected myself enough, they would love to support me in that way. The people that I had to reach out to would have loved to give me that space, would have loved to spend time with my kids. So today I practiced saying that I needed help with a smile. I loved how much I hated it, and I hated how much I loved it. And I was uncomfortable today. But I maintained my composure with little effort. I felt okay. My insides weren't screaming at me to hold it together. I've been struggling to maintain a baseline where I'm the one directing my mind. And instead, lately, my body is absolutely screaming at me, and it's disrespectful. So today I decided to appreciate my journey, respect a fresh start, and admire what's in front of me. While my neighbor was fixing my stoop, a hawk had started circling around my house and screeching. My mom was inside, and a hawk is one of her spirit animals, and they've been showing up in a lot of ways. And I mentioned this to my neighbor. I also mentioned that my mom is a Leo, and on the day I'm writing this, it's 8/8, and in numerology, 2024 is reduced to an 8 year, so it's 888, a triple amplification of 8. It is considered the peak of the Lionsgate portal of manifestation, where the energy available is profound and infinite. So my mom's sun sign is a Leo. The sun sign is essentially how the world sees you. Your rising sign is a better reflection of who you are on the inside. My rising sign is a Leo. And I just always wanted to be like my mom. I admire her, and I like who she is and how I feel around her. Because of her example, I have incredible tenacity. I grew up thinking my mom could do anything, and I was a little judgmental brat and got mad at her when I was younger for not doing what I thought she should be doing. But I get it. It's just when I saw her as a person, a whole entire human exploring self-respect, I get why she did what she did and how she did it. But I'm always so proud of her when she just steps into her inherent power, because she radiates. She turns heads. People are drawn to her. They value her input. They seek her out. The little me inside wants to be that person too. And that's the Leo that she expresses in her sun sign that I feel in my rising sign. We got to share that perfectly today. And it was fun talking to her about it too, because she once said that I couldn't be in charge of her estate and funeral planning because I would be a mess when she goes. And when she told me that a few years back, she was right. But that comment alone helped me explore my own authenticity. Since I had admired and respected her, I looked to her for guidance. Even when she wasn't there, she was the voice in my head when it came time to make questionable decisions. I didn't stop and think, what would mom say? But naturally, her guidance flooded in before I made the next move. She was my guide. And that's not a fair dynamic for any relationship. And as much as I appreciate the guidance and still lean on it heavily, my voice is the loudest. I still hear her considerations. I still consider them with respect. And I can still call her for genuine consideration and conversation, which I appreciate because she's still growing too. Like when I discuss things with her, there's a part of me that thinks I know her answer before she even speaks. But then she'll hit me with a new, much better perspective than I would have arrived at on my own. Sometimes we just believe different things, and that's okay too. Like I didn't understand the Catholic saint stuff well enough to value the prayer in the same way that my mom did. So growing up, if I lost something, she'd tell me to pray to St. Anthony. And I tried, and it never worked for me. When I moved out and was on my own and I couldn't find my car keys, I'd call my mom and be like, hey, will you call St. Anthony and ask him to find my keys real quick? Like, we don't have to believe the same stuff in order to respect each other. Like, I know that she believes it, and I know that it's also going to work for me when it works for her. Like, it's just, I trust her intent and I trust her course of action. I forget it sometimes because she's a steamroller, but not in the way that like, hey, I'm going to crush you if you don't move. But hey, like, we're paving it and like everything's here. So we're doing it right now. And you're like, okay, but the road's not ready. And you're like, well, duh, because I have to steamroll it. Like she's tenacious and she's going to go and she's going to do. And she sees things in a way that she sees the road before it's paved. My partner and I have separated. His name is Lucas. I mostly call him Luke. I'm Allison. And together, Luke and Allison are look and listen. That's how we've been addressing things. Look, this is how I see it. And listen, this is how I feel it. Not consistently though, because I've been look while he's been listen and he's been listen while I've been look. We've been rapidly changing our roles. And this evening he said goodbye to the kids and left to spend the second night in his new apartment. And I cried in my kitchen. My mom approaching me like, what are you feeling? And I said, I'm just sad, but I was processing it. And I got to explain the process as I did it with her in front of me. The first thoughts that rise are unpleasant. I'm calling them out. My head is telling me that I'm messing up my chance at a happy family, and my kids don't deserve this. I feel that I'm basically setting them up to relive uncomfortably specific scenarios from my childhood. I cry and I close my eyes and I envision my future. I don't piece it together, but I do it like on Family Feud. It's like, okay, show me happy family. And then I can see it. And I can see it in a million ways. Little images of high fives and hugs. And us sharing those glances that says like, wow, they're amazing. Can you even believe they came from us? And little giggles knowing that like, oh, they got that from you. Being excited to share good news. Being together in celebration beyond just being civil. I see a happy family together again in so many ways. And I know it's good to feel your feelings, but that's why we need both the masculine and the feminine integrated. To just feel through it right now is to tough it out. And that's not working for me. I have to integrate the masculine and do something about it. But right now, a lot of that is in my head, working through these big, big feelings in very simple ways. My kids watched the movie Tangled tonight. It's a Rapunzel story. We have a bedtime princess storybook that essentially like compresses the movie into a 10-page recap of Disney princess stuff. So I kind of knew what to expect, but I haven't actually watched the movie. So I sat down during the part where the guy takes Rapunzel in a canoe and they get the best view of the lantern lighting ceremony. So as the community releases their lanterns, I was like, ooh, this is kind of how that Lionsgate portal feels today. Like, just lift it up, send it off. The energy's available. Tell it what you want and let it go. Start it, light it, set it off today. In the movie, the community releases the lantern on the princess's birthday because the princess disappeared as a baby. Rapunzel didn't know this or know that she was the missing princess. So she just like admired them from afar, passionately, annually. They get to a song called I See the Light, and my brain told me to sing it to myself about myself. My brain told me this because like 5 separate times my neighbor was telling me to find a song. Just pick a song that gets you going, to blast it every morning that makes you feel like Superwoman. So I've been thinking about that, but I wasn't like, oh, this will be my song or that'll be my song. But like that energy was like, okay, I know that this is on a checklist internally somewhere. Find my song. So they sing this song called I See the Light. And it's like, listen, this is your love song to yourself. And I was crying almost immediately anyway, because Disney does that to me now. But the song ends with, if she's here, it's crystal clear I'm where I'm meant to go. And at last I see the light, and it's like the fog has lifted. And at last I see the light, and it's like the sky is new. And it's warm and real and bright. And the world has somehow shifted. All at once, everything is different now that I see you. So as a love letter to myself, this is the manifestation of the Lionsgate. Like everything is different now that I see myself, and it's coming to light. The movie ends with Rapunzel being reunited with her parents, and the community rejoices in a week-long celebration. And I just take a deep breath and remind myself I get to go home. Oh, now I've spent a lot of years trash talking my hometown. My hometown is Elyria. The other night I called my friend like, yo, I just realized this. Delirious. Elyria. Do you hear it? So I looked into the concept of being delirious. It's an acutely disturbed state of mind resulting from illness or intoxication, characterized by restlessness, illusions, and incoherence of thought and speech. I feel like I've been delirious for the last few years. But it has all made so much sense to me. But outwardly, I probably seem delirious often. The choice I'm making to move back to Elyria seems delirious. So before we go into the black hole, because that's what I called my hometown, a black hole for years, we're going to get into establishment, because I established Elyria as a black hole, and that's not fair. So we're going to run it all the way back. We're talking Big Bang. I would argue in general that opinion, imagination, and intention are how our world is presented, but our expectation and understanding of it is hindered by its continuity. So basically, once it's stamped into reality, it's immovable because we expect it to be, and so it is. There's an article regarding the double slit experiment in regards to the observer effect, where Larry Gottlieb says, "The world you and I experience is an interpretation of sensory data." This is precisely my truth today. The world you and I experience is an interpretation of sensory data. But we're also manipulators. The idea of a Big Bang is a bit too far in the past for me to have an appropriate baseline to truly understand it. And the visuals I've seen, I'm like, not right. Like, I don't know what feels untrue about it because it does make sense, but something still feels off. So instead, think about the internet. It was a thing that just existed one day, and it turned into this incredible entity. In 1998, commoners didn't think that the internet was necessary, but it became a new toy, a new tool, and then it established reality beyond measure due to its availability and exposure. Nobody in 1998 would have fathomed our reliance in 2020. Access was a necessity. And in this lifetime, the internet is my closest example that we have to the Big Bang. When I think about the first telescope, with this theory that we're projecting our reality, someone wanted to see something amazing, and they did. I imagine that when they looked through that telescope, it casted that image and established the reality. I don't think it happened that long ago. I don't think what's in the sky now has been there this whole time. I think about that with evolution also, where Darwin goes to the Galapagos and wants so bad to experience and explore. Like he's just so passionate about what the potential. It's the potential and the considerations probably on the way to it. And there were samples all over the earth, and they were able to be created for him. And he insisted it was evolution because that was the example. And it really makes sense when you lay it all out there. But maybe it was just created specifically for him. And the impact for all of us was never the point. There's an episode of Friends where Phoebe questions evolution. So Ross shows up ready to teach her all about it, like prove it to her. He's got a briefcase full of fossils. Let's go. She's like, listen, I'm not denying it, but like at some point in our history, the brightest minds thought that the earth was flat until we didn't, or that the atom was the smallest thing until we split it. Basically, she gets down to like, now, are you telling me that you're so unbelievably arrogant that you can't admit that there's a teeny tiny possibility that you could be wrong about this? Sheepishly, he's like, there might be a teeny tiny possibility. And she flips like, I cannot believe you caved. You just abandoned your whole belief system. Before, I didn't agree with you, but at least I respected you. No wonder people don't want to. It's like, it's not even fair to consider it. It's okay to fold. Be open to change. If this telescope idea is true, evolution might also be true in that same sense. It existed because someone wanted it to, like Chalk Zone, TV show from when we were kids where you draw something on chalk and you erase it and it goes to Chalk Zone. You get the magic chalk, put a circle on it. Now it's a portal to Chalk Zone and you get to play in there and create there. This could be Chalk Zone if we could decide that we have the potential for it to exist. I believe that. Is that delirious? Probably. But like the Odyssey, even the journey of going back home, the Odyssey that we're exposed to in high school was basically like, okay, this is what you're going to experience on the next leg of your trip. So then he does that and experiences all that, like, okay, what's next? I'm trying to get home. And they're like, well, you have to go through this and you'll encounter that and da da da. So everybody establishes what's going to happen. And so it does. But like cartography wasn't really relevant. And I'm sure like if nobody established cartography, there was a lot more to work with. But when they plan for it, it's there when he arrives. Physically, literally all of it. He expects them to tell them what happens next. So life just happens to him and happens to him and happens to him. And essentially like there's a curse in every single conversation, lengthening his path back home. And it's all made up, but it's also very real. So for a black hole, maybe that person looked into a telescope and, okay, so I have two theories for like projection and establishment. For projection, initially like the first black hole through a telescope, I'd imagine the observer/creator is approaching the telescope with an open heart and an open mind, genuinely just open to experience anything that life throws their way. No expectations, but excited to explore. And we look in and there's a black hole. Because they're not using their imagination, there is nothing to project. instead of a hole, maybe it's a physical, visual representation of possibility and potential waiting to be utilized. But instead, we're like gonna measure it and see what it's maybe capable of. My establishment theory is like, okay, maybe it was like the universe was established as it is, whatever, and the person looked into the telescope and like viewed a thing that already existed. Okay. So maybe it's a reaction to an established nature of our universe. It's not a vast never-ending space, but maybe an enclosure, like we are all together within a somethingness. And I got this idea through ferrofluid because like my favorite visual here of ferrofluid is like when you have it magnetized, it's like, okay, when it's not magnetized, it looks like straight up black fluid. And then you magnetize it and it turns into like this little dome shape kind of thing. But then it also spikes. It looks like a little spiky toy, like something you'd throw for a dog, or like a dryer ball, like the plastic ones. As ferrofluid though, it dances and it spins and it looks spiky on the outside. So if we're visualizing it from the outer side, and since it is black fluid, you can't see inside. What might that look like from the inside? If you're on the plate or on the magnet looking up into where these cones are forming, like we can visualize it from the outside. If we're in the inside looking up and out, it would be kind of like a cone, not a hole, but a cone from the outside in. So like if there was a tornado, but like on the ceiling, and that's what we're looking at. With either theory, it's not a miserable, questionable danger to existence, which is kind of how we collectively explore black holes. I don't think it's a hole at all. I don't think it goes anywhere or is a portal to anything or destroys us or anything. I think it's just like, okay, if somebody took a light bulb out of the socket, it's still there. It's just waiting for something to happen. It's not a miserable, questionable danger to existence. It doesn't feel scary. But when I said my hometown was a black hole, I meant that it was a miserable, questionable danger to existence. And not that I was going to die there, but it's like businesses don't thrive. Downtown is not thriving. People weren't smiling or making eye contact, and it just wasn't alive. It's not even that it wasn't thriving, but it was like, I just could not wait to get out when I got out. And I've viewed the city in that same way for basically the past decade. So now I see it as a cone of possibility. It can still be a black hole, but it's not a hole. And I'm ready to swim around in it and sprinkle some magic. Thanks for listening to another episode of Unravel with Allison. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Unravel with Allison. Follow, subscribe, keep in touch, and stay up to date on new episodes. If you'd like to support the show, start with the algorithm. Rates and reviews always help to spread the message. Thank you for being here, and I'll catch you next week.